doing this one a little sooner than last night because I was out yesterday. So yeah, I was wishing because I was out yesterday and made it awkward to do about this time. So yeah. Yep. Okay. My sister's a bit of a football person. Today we're on Sweden, following on a little bit from yesterday with Denmark and all that. Kind of doing Scandinavia this week. So yeah, here we go. Starting off with the history of Sweden. As first humans arrived in Sweden by 8000 BC, at the end of the last ice age, and when warming temperatures at first made the country habitable. First Swedes were Stone Age hunter-gatherers and fishermen who lived near the coast, but by about 4000 BC, farming was introduced into Sweden, and farmers used stone tools and weapons, and after about 2000 BC they learned to use bronze, and the Bronze Age craftsmen became skilled in making items of bronze, and Bronze Age Sweden horses and chariots were used, and carving of boats suggested the trade was important. And in about 500 BC, iron was introduced into Sweden, and the Iron Age Swedes had contact with Romans and sold slaves, furs, amber to the Roman merchants. In turn, the Romans sold them Mediterranean luxuries. So I was not too happy. And in the 9th century, the Norwegians and Danes turned into raiding what is now Western Europe, but the Swedes were more interested in trade. Improvements in ship designs made long-distance trade possible, and the Swedes crossed the Baltic and travelled along Russian rivers as far away as the Byzantine Empire. And the number of merchants and craftsmen increased at the same time. But Sweden was an overwhelmingly agricultural society, and it was divided into 3 classes. At the bottoms were slaves, or thralls. The slaves were a common item of trade. What kind of life of a slave was no doubt like a bad life to live. Although through no fault of their own, and they made to deal the hardest and most unpleasant work. And above the thralls were the free men, and all varied greatly, and is dependent on the amount of the land they owned. As some were well off and were able to own slaves and all, while above the free men were the jarls or earls. And in the 9th century, Sweden became one kingdom, but the Swedish king had little power. And when the king died, his eldest son did not necessarily inherit the throne, and it might go to a younger son, or even the king's brother. But the centuries passed, the king's power slowly increased. And in the 11th century, Sweden was converted to Christianity. And afterwards it became part of the Western civilization, as a missionary called Ansgar went to Sweden in 829, but had little success in converting Swedes. But the Swedish king Olaf Konung became a Christian in 1008, but it was a long time before the Swedes were converted, like the rest of the Swedes are considered, were converted, as paganism lingered on in Sweden until the end of the 11th century. And last by the middle of the 12th century, Sweden had become a firmly Christian country. In 1157, King Eric led Sweden in a crusade to convert the Finns. Although whether the crusade was really motivated by religion or politics is debatable. And after his death 3 years after, in 1160, he became a patron saint of Sweden. In the 13th century, the Swedes had conquered Finland, and the church feared that the Finns would be converted to Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and looked with favour upon the Swedish invasion. A second crusade was launched in 1249 as the Russians fought the Swedes for control of Finland, but by 1323 Finland was in Swedish hands, and Finland remained a province of Sweden until 1809. In the 13th century, Sweden made changes in agriculture, and Viking farmers had 2 large fields. Each 1 year was sown with crops while the other was left fallow. And in the 13th century, Swedish farmers had begun to use a free farm field system. And every 1 year, one field was sown with spring crops and one was sown with autumn crops, while one was left fallow. As well as improvements to agriculture, Swedish trade and commerce prospered, new towns were founded while old ones were expanded. As Jarl Birger founded the town of Stockholm in 1252, which is late in the sense of others, like how cities being found and all. And like one being founded in time with the Romans and all that, like over 2,000 years ago, kind of thing. And in 1280, King Magnus granted the upper class exemption from paying tax in return for military service. However, in most of Europe, the peasants were serfs, who were halfway between slavery and free men. Swedish peasants were never really reduced to this. They were never really reduced to serfdom. And King Valdemar from 1250 to 1275 passed laws which applied to all of Sweden. At the time, each province had its own laws, and the laws improved the rights of women and strengthened the crown. And finally, in 1350, the Swedish king issued a code of laws for the whole country. Like a lot of Europe, Sweden was devastated by the Black Death, which struck in 1349 and killed roughly about a third of the population. And in 1388, the Swedish nobles rebelled against the king, Albert of Mecklenburg, from 1363 to 1389. He called Margaret the regent of Norway, and in 1389 her army defeated Albert and captured him and became ruler of Sweden, although Albert's allies held on to Stockholm until 1398. And in 1397 Margaret's great-nephew Eric was crowned king of Sweden, Norway and Denmark in Kalmar, and the 3 countries were temporarily united into one kingdom, and it was called the Union of Kalmar. But Eric alienated the Swedes by giving the Danes and Germans important positions, and he also fought a war against Holstein, and there was also the Hanseatic League, which was an alliance of Baltic trading towns, stopped Sweden importing salt and stopped Swedish iron exports. In 1434, the Swedish peasants and miners rebelled. In 1439, Eric was deposed. In 1440, he was replaced by his nephew Christopher. But in 1448, the Swedish nobles chose one of their own, Karl Knutsson, as king, and Sweden separated from Denmark and Norway. And from 1470 to 1520, the regents ruled Sweden. In 1506, the regent Svante Nilsson Stutter began a war with Denmark that lasted until 1513. And in 1517 a power struggle between Regent Stutter and the young and Archbishop of Uppsala broke into civil war, and in the same year Stutter captured the Archbishop Gustav Trolle and his castle as Trolle was in prison. But in 1520 the Danes intervened and Stutter was killed, and his widow carried on the fight, and she and her followers held Stockholm until September 1520, and on 4th November Christian II was crowned. And the king then arrested his enemies in Stockholm and tried them for heresy on grounds that they had ignored the authority of the church. Afterwards, 82 people were executed in a bloodbath in Stockholm, as many other executions were carried out in other parts of Sweden. But his policy backfired, as a year later in 1521 the Swedes rebelled as Gustavus Vasa led them. As Trolle was forced to flee, and Gustavus became king of Sweden in 1523. At that point the Union of Kalmar ended completely, and Sweden became an independent country. And in the early 16th century the Reformation had reached Sweden, and in 1526 the New Testament was translated into Swedish. The whole and rest of the Bible was translated in 1541, and in 1536 Gustavus allowed the church to adopt certain Lutheran practices such as marriage of the clergy, and gradually Sweden turned from being a Catholic country to a Protestant country. Finally, in 1593 the Swedish church adopted the Confession of Augsburg, a statement of Protestant doctrine, as things did not go smoothly for Gustavus. And in 1542 there was a rebellion in Sweden, which he had crushed, and so Gustavus increased his group, and in 1544 Gustavus made the Swedish crown hereditary, and he decreed that his eldest son would succeed him. As Gustavus died in 1560, and his successor Eric the 14th tried to build an empire in Estonia, and in 1561 the Swedes took Tallinn, part of Estonia, and the Danes had also had ambitions in the air, and the two countries went to war in 1563, and in 1563 Eric's brother John led a rebellion. In January of 1569 he became King John III, and he ended the War of Denmark in 1570. In 1587 John's son Sigismund was elected King of Poland, and in 1592 he became King of Sweden, but Sigismund was a Roman Catholic and was unpopular in Sweden, and was deposed in 1599, and afterwards Duke Charles called himself administrator of the realm, ruled Sweden, and in 1604 he became King Charles IX. And in 1611 and 1613 Denmark and Sweden had fought yet another war, and King Charles IX died in 1661 and was replaced by a regent. And in 1613 Gustavus II Adolphus became King of Sweden, and he was known as the Lion of the North, although the war with Denmark, and in 1613 Sweden was also at war with Russia and with Poland, and the war with Russia ended in 1617, and the war with Poland dragged on until 1629, and in the end Sweden gained Riga and part of Latvia. In August 10th, 1628, the king's ship, the Vasa, sunk near Stockholm on its maiden voyage, another unfortunate maiden voyage that happened not to be Titanic, and it lay on the seabed for 133 years before it was recovered. A couple of years before which occurred in 1961. As Gustavus Adolphus had a gift of organisation, as he created efficient administration, and he also created a standing army, which had some of the best artillery in the world. And in 1630 he decided to intervene in the 30 Years' War, which was being fought in Germany. As Adolphus joined the war, partly to help his fellow Protestants, but to also increase the wealth and power of Sweden. And in 1631 he won a great victory at Rittenfield. However, in 1632 he was killed in the Battle of Lutzen, and after the king's death the Chancellor Axenstein continued the war before it finally ended in 1648. Meanwhile, the Swedes and the Danes fought another war from 1643 to 45, and in 1655 the King Charles X Gustavus invaded Poland and conquered most of the country, and in 1654 the Danes went to war against Sweden again, and for the first time Swedes did have some success. However, in August 1658 tried unsuccessfully to capture Copenhagen, and he died in February 1660, and the war with Denmark ended in May 1660, when the Swedes were the dominant power in Northern Europe. And in the late 17th century, Sweden became an absolute monarchy, and was sometimes called the Caroline Absolutism, and Sweden and Denmark fought again in a war from 1672 to 1709, and the wars pushed Sweden into debt. By the 1680s, the land that the crown had given or sold to the nobles was taken back by the king, and then in 1693 the Riksdag made a declaration of sovereignty which recognised the king's right to rule as he wished. And then in 1697 Charles XII became King of Sweden. In 1700 Denmark, Poland and Russia all decided to try and attack Sweden, and showing the war became known as the Great Northern War, as Charles XII put an army to Zealand in Denmark, and as a result the Danes quickly capitulated, and afterwards the Swedes crushed the Russians at the Battle of Narva in Estonia, and from 1702 to 1706 Charles fought the Poles. But in 1707 Sweden was invaded by Russia, with disastrous results to say the least, and as in 1709 he marched into the Ukraine, and in the 28th of January 1709 Charles attacked the Russians at Poltava and was routed, and the army was captured, but he fled to Moldavia, in a part of the Turkish Empire. And as a result, in 1710 Russians captured Tallinn in Estonia, Riga in Latvia, and Viipuri in Finland from the Swedes. Danes also attacked Sweden, but they were severely defeated at Helsingborg in 1710 and Gettysburg in 1712. And Charles then attacked Norway, and in November 1718 he was killed while besieging the fortress of Fredrikstein. And in 1720 the Swedes made peace with Denmark, and then in 1721 they made by a treaty of Nystad, and Sweden was forced to give up the Baltic states, provinces, and the parts of Finland to Russia, and for Sweden the age of greatness was over. But the age of greatness of Sweden was also the age of absolutism. After the king's death in 1718, the royal power was curtailed, and the age of freedom began. And Queen Ulrika replaced him, but the Riksdag drew up a new constitution and the Queen abdicated rather than accept it. Her husband replaced her as Prince Frederick of Hessen. He became Frederick I and was forced to accept new constitutional laws, which severely restricted his powers, and Sweden enjoyed a measure of liberty, and two political parties emerged, Black Caps and the Hats. And during the mid-18th century, Sweden prospered. The number of peasants who owned their own land greatly increased, as Sweden exported vast amounts of iron and tar. And the population grew from 1.5 million in 1721 to almost 1.8 million in the middle of the century. The first Swedish census was held in 1749 and showed that the country had a population of 1,764,724, and in 1739 Swedish Academy of Sciences was founded. The New Testament was translated into Latin, which seems to be like a small language in Sweden. However, in the 1760s, the situation deteriorated as the wars with Russia in 1741 to 1743 and Prussia in 1757-62 proved to be extremely expensive for Sweden, and they led to inflation and a financial crisis. As Sweden also suffered a series of bad harvests and near famine. In the middle of the crisis in 1772, the king staged a coup and regained his power, and the age of freedom essentially ended then. And then in the ensuing years, a new currency was issued to end the inflation, and in 1788, King Gustav I went to war with Russia, hoping a successful war would increase his popularity. However, the war ended in 1791 and neither side making any material gains, and in 1792, the king was shot by a former officer of the Royal Guards. And in February 1808, the Russians invaded Finland and they quickly overran it, and the King Gustav IV was deposed in March of 1809. A new constitution was introduced and Charles XIII was elected king, but he was unfit to rule, and a man named Charles August was elected crown prince. And in September, a peace treaty was made with Russia and Finland was lost forever. And Charles August died in 1810. One of Napoleon's marshals, John Baptiste Bernadotte, was elected as new crown prince, and he took the name Charles John. And in April 1812, Charles John formed an alliance with Russia against Napoleon. And in 1813, Sweden joined the war against France. And at the end of the year, Charles John returned to Denmark, and at the time the Danish king ruled Norway, and Charles wished to make it his own, and succeeded, and in January 1840 the Danes surrendered Norway to Sweden. As King Charles XIII died in 1818, and Crown Prince Charles John became a new king, and by then the population of Sweden was about 2.5 million, and it rose to about 3.5 million by 1850. 3.5 million by 1850, and part of the reason for this was the increase of the form of agriculture. In the early 19th century, farmland in Sweden was enclosed, and in 1800 most land was farmed using open field system, as land was divided into small strips and each farmer owned several strips scattered around the village. And in the early 19th century, the land each farm was enclosed. That would mean it was divided up so each farmer got a single block of land in one place. And the enclosure allowed Swedish agriculture to become more efficient. And rising population was despite large-scale immigration. Many Swedes immigrated to the USA in the 19th century. In the early 19th century, Sweden was an overwhelmingly agricultural country. But in 1846 the trade was deregulated, and till then it was controlled by organisations called guilds. In that year they lost their power, and in 1842 universal primary education was introduced in Sweden. The first railway in Sweden was built in 1856. Oscar I became King of Sweden in 1844, and in 1865 he agreed to constitutional reforms, and in 1867 the old Riksdag was divided into 4 estates. Nobility, clergymen, burghers and peasants was replaced by parliaments with 2 houses. And in the late 19th century and early 20th century, Sweden was transformed by the Industrial Revolution. Introductions of steel and iron boomed, and the Swedish engineering industry also flourished. The Swedish industry also helped the introduction of hydroelectricity by the end of the 19th century. And in 1905, Norway became independent of Sweden. Sweden remained neutral during the First World War. And in 1921, universal suffrage was introduced. And the 1920s were relatively prosperous for Sweden, but in the 1930s, Sweden suffered during the Depression, and unemployment rose to 24.9%. And by 1932, Social Democrats formed a coalition with the Agrarian Party. And he took steps to help agriculture, and also created public works to reduce unemployment. And by 1939, the Swedish economy had largely recovered, although unemployment was still high at 17%. Unlike World War I before it, Sweden remained neutral during the Second World War, as Sweden has maintained a policy of neutrality since 1814. And this policy has served the country well, but in the late 1930s the Swedish government increased military spending in case of attack, as who knew what Hitler was going to do at the time. In the late 40s and the 50s, 1940s and the 50s, a strong welfare state was created in Sweden, and reforms included more generous old age pensions, child allowances and health insurance. In 1974, a new constitution was introduced, and minimum age for voting was reduced to 1918. That's where I'm almost done with the history now. In the 50s and 60s were years of prosperity for Sweden, as there was full employment, but the Swedish economy suffered a downturn by the mid to 1970s, as employment was high in the 1990s, where it reached 9.9% in 1996, but in the early years of the 21st century it did decline. In the late 20th century, the Swedish economy changed greatly, and service industries gained much more importance as the manufacturing industry declined in importance, like in agriculture. And today Sweden is a rich country, and people have a high standard of living. But in the Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme was assassinated on the 28th of February 1986, and the crime shocked the country. In 1991, Sweden formally applied to join the EU and was able to join on the 1st of January 1995. And in 2006, the centre-right coalition narrowly won an election, and the new government, led by Fredrik Reinfeldt, promised to reform Sweden's expensive welfare state. And in 2009, like the rest of the world, Sweden suffered during a recession, and unemployment rates rose to a high level again, but Sweden recovered quickly from it. Unemployment fell to 6.6% in 2017. And today Sweden is more or less a prosperous country, and the population of Sweden stands about 9.9 million. So yeah, that's history for you. Moving on to language. That's why there's not too much now, as there's only about a page left of the script. The Swedish language, or Swedish svenska, is the official language of Sweden, and with Finnish, one of the two national languages of Finland. Swedish belongs to the East Scandinavian group of North Germanic languages, and until World War II it was spoken in parts of Estonia and Latvia. And Swedish was spoken by about 8 million Swedes, and in the 21st century it is closely related to Norwegian and Danish. So yeah. Yes, languages was just short again. So yeah, moving on to legends. According to there's a bit of ancient folklore with different local variations. And Narken was about the Narken. As a Narken was a supernatural man who lived in seas, lakes, streams and rivers. He basically lived where there was water, and his mission is to enchant and drown people with his outstanding and fascinating fiddle. And when people hear the music, they become enchanted and follow the sound that is coming from the water. And he's lurking people into the stream, which will be their death, and they'll end up dead because they drown themselves, walking towards the music. Some may say that Narken was the best folk musician of them all, and was willing to teach people how to play. But having Narken as your teacher brought great danger, and the students often ended up in a addiction of supernatural powers. None of them played until they loosened their minds, and people who listened to the music started dancing, and couldn't really stop, and the only way to break the spell was for someone to cut off the violin strings. As a Narken is most often in his birthday suits when he plays, as his name means naked, like Narken means naked. So if he is naked, it would rather look decent. I can often picture him with quite long brown hair with seagrass in it, and he always looks sad and like something's torturing him. And the legends say the reason why he looks people into the water is that he is feeling lonely and wants to be alone no more. And some say that the Narken can take different shapes, as he is often said to turn himself into a white horse, and can be called Backharsten, or horse of the river, as Backharsten is often an insidious predator who lurks chilling to ride on its back. And it doesn't matter how many children there are, the Backharsten only gets longer and longer. And when the Backharsten has entered the children for a while, he jumps into water and drowns all of them. And the only way to stop a Backharsten is to throw a piece of steel between the Backharsten and the water, and then the spell is broken and the Backharsten loses its power. As the legend of the Narken is, probably made to kind of discourage children from going near water. And the sound, as it said, that the sound of water is similar to a fiddle, as a phenomenon knocking. It's more common a couple of generations ago. But today, it's like you don't really hear of it, kind of thing. So yeah, that's the video today, and yeah, I'll see you all soon, like later on today for the news and all. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, bye for now.